Parshas KiTavo. Today I'd like to focus on a certain terminology that's used when Moshe Rabbeinu describes the blessings and curses that will befall the Jewish people. As you know, there are two places in the Torah where there's a long section called the Tochacha, called the Great Rebuke or Admonition against the Jewish people. One is in Sefer Vayikra, in Parshas Bechukosai, at the very end of the book of Vayikra. And the other one is in this week's Parsha, Parshas KiTavo, when Moshe gives this very, very stern admonition to the Jewish people, giving graphic detail of all the terrible things that will happen to us when we are exiled from our land. It's quite scary. But before then, it's prefaced by a much shorter section of all the blessings that await us when we follow Hashem's commandments and we serve Him faithfully. And if you take a look at Pasuk Beis in chapter 28, it says that if you serve Hashem faithfully, it says, Uva'u alecha kol haberachos ha'ele v'hisigucha ki sishma b'kol Hashem elokecha, that all of the blessings that I've just described will befall you and they will reach you. And that's really the key word that I'd like to focus on today. What does this word v'hisigucha really mean? What is it? So just put a line under the word v'hisigucha. What's that?
It's like a competition.
Yeah. Right. So yeah. So lahasig is to attain. It'll catch up with you. Catch up with you. That's a good way of saying it, right? It'll catch up with you. So what does that word add to the meaning of the pasuk? And why doesn't the pasuk just say uva'u alecha kol haberachos ha'ele, that all of these blessings will befall you? What is v'hisigucha? It'll catch up with you. They'll attain you. We also find this in the context of the curses as well. It says in Pasuk Tetvav at the very beginning of the klalos of the curses, "V'haya im lo sishma b'kol Hashem elokecha, lishmor lasos es kol mitzvasav v'chukasav Hashem echim etzavecha hayom." If you don't hearken unto the voice of God, and you don't follow His commandments, then uva'u alecha kol hakalalos ha'ila v'hisigucha. Once again, this very same language, all of the curses will befall you, and they will catch up with you. And then one more time we find this terminology in the very middle of the Tochacha in Pasuk Memhei. It says, Uva'u alecha kol ha'kalalos ha'ila urdafucha v'hisigucha. Then not only will all of these curses befall you, but they will chase after you, and they'll catch up to you. Right, so again, you see this same terminology, but here you have even the additional word, they'll run after you, they'll chase after you, and they will finally reach you. So what do these terms mean? And there could be, you're welcome to conjecture on your own. I wanted to provide you with three brief insights from three different commentaries, the Kli Yakar, the Netziv, and Reb Tzadok HaKohen, quoting his Rebbe, the Ishbitzer Rebbe. So the Kli Yakar, which we took a look at an earlier sefer from the Kli Yakar last week, but this is actually the Kli Yakar's commentary. He says, Habi Orhu is source number 2. Shekol harodef achar hasirara hi borachat mimenu. We know the famous principle. He who he who pursues honor or leadership runs away from him. V'haboreach min hasirara rodefet acharav. But if a person runs away from leadership runs after that person. You ever heard that before? If you run after honor and glory, then glory will run away from you. But if you run away from glory, if you run away from kavod, from srara, from leadership, then leadership will run after you. One of the students of I think it was the Chidushei Harim, one of his students asked him, he said, Rebbe, all my life I've been running away from kavod. How come kavod has never run after me, like the promise of the sages? So he said, because every time you were running away, you would peek over your shoulder to see if kavod was running after you. When kavod saw you looking over your shoulder, it ran away. So you can't run away from it in the hopes that it'll run after you. You have to really sincerely run away and say, I don't want it. This is not about me. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this because this is for the greater good. That's really what this means. So the Kli Yakar says that this is really the theme that is being expressed here in the Torah. He says, because v'hasarara makor l'chol habarachot, because leadership is really the source of all blessing. Ki masha kana eved kana rabba, because after all, once you're in a leadership position, then you really call all the shots. And he says, because when you're subservient to someone else, you are at a disadvantage because you don't have the autonomy to make those decisions. But when you're in a leadership position, then you can, so many opportunities open up to you so that you can really achieve all of these blessings. Lefichach amar nesanacha Hashem elyon. That's why the Torah says that God will make you as on the top. In other words, you'll be the upper management. You'll be the CEO. You'll be on top. Kizehu hasara shelo ye'osel levakesh oso lishtadel acharel. He says, but that's not something that you should really pursue. You shouldn't say, I have this great ambition. I want to be the greatest. I want to be a leader. Right? That's not something that you should aspire towards. However, umikol makom yitein Hashem osalach. But if you serve Hashem faithfully, it will be a byproduct of your service. Ume'az v'hala tihiyah hasarara rodefes acharecha v'hisigucha, or v'tasigecha. Okay, so therefore basically that's what the pasuk is describing. Is that if you serve Hashem faithfully, and part of that divine service is saying that what my personal aspirations, I have to put those aside. My personal ambitions, unimportant. My priority is the service of the Ribbono Shel Olam. Whatever Hashem places me to do, whatever God asks of me to do, to the best of my understanding of what God expects of me to do, I will do, even if it goes against my own personal objectives and goals in life, right? Because I always wanted to be a dancer, right? Not me personally, but that's an ugly thought, but I've always wanted to be a dancer, but Hashem decided for me that dancing is not going to be my vocation in life because it's not something that I as a frum lady can do. So therefore I'll put aside my own aspirations and goals and I will make Hashem's requirements upon me as my priority and I will work for God. Then Hashem says, don't worry, somehow when you need to dance, you'll dance. Right? In other words, or whatever analogy you want to be able to find. Whatever your aspirations and goals are, if you put them aside, eventually, whatever is meant for you to achieve in life will be achieved, and you will be able to realize those goals. And that's really what the word v'hisigucha is. Ubo alecha kol habarachos ha'ela. All of these blessings will befall you, v'hisigucha, and they'll come running after you because you ran away from your own personal interests and your own leadership and your own ambitions. They will come after you, and you'll be able to realize greatness in life. Now, so that's one perspective. That's from the Kli Yakar. Let's take a look at the Netziv in his Ha'amek Davar commentary. So he, it's that fifth line where I underlined the words Ela Ha'inyan. He says, let me explain to you what the word v'hisigucha means. And by the way, before we go on to the Netziv, if we're going to learn, even though the Kli Yakar doesn't say this explicitly, but the converse, when the Torah says that uba'u alecha kol haklalos ha'ela v'hisigucha, that all of the curses will come and reach you, so to speak, that you won't have any advantages because you'll have attained a lowly status. In other words, Hashem will remove from you because you tried to pursue your own goals instead of the service of Hashem. Then because you ran after those things, then instead of blessing pursuing you, just the opposite will pursue you. Curse will pursue you. And that's the downside of pursuing your own goals over Hashem's goals. But the Netziv says something a little bit different. He says, Ela ha'inyan de b'sha'a she'en ha'adam asuk b'shkedas ha'torah mispa'elu margish simcha behagilo eza revach uvracha ba'olam. This is very simply, when you're not engaged in the spiritual endeavors of Torah and mitzvot, so in those situations when a person's life is really not focused on spiritual endeavors, when you win the lottery, wow, it's amazing, right? When you gain physical things in life, because your whole focus is on the physical, then physical acquisitions are great. You get a big simcha when you win the lottery. Az eno mispa'el me'eza revach kal. By contrast, if a person's whole focus in life is the spiritual, if you're focused on Torah, and you're focused on mitzvahs, you're focused on tefillah, then when you win the lottery, okay, so I won the lottery. In other words, so what does that mean? Like, I won a brand new car. But is a car such an important thing? Having a spanking new car, is that really so special? I mean, my focus in life is not on new cars, is not on those kinds of physical, very prosaic acquisitions in life. So normally we would think that there's a sort of a disadvantage of a person who's of a spiritual focus, in that they really don't have the same ability to enjoy the things of the physical world, because it's like they say a story about the Chafetz Chaim, that his wife, in Europe, a lot of people who were poor lived on dirt floors. No one had finished floors. And in the early 20th century, people were starting to get wood on the floor instead of dirt. So Mrs. Chafetz Chaim kept asking her husband. She said, I want to, let's get a wooden floor. We've done well in the store. You sold a lot of sfarm. So finally, he gave in, and he said he let her put in the oak floor, whatever it was. And he comes home for the first day after wherever he was, and he said to him, so what do you think of the floor? And he said, all I see are pages of Gemara on the floor. In other words, he said, for me, the floor doesn't mean anything. I just imagine how much we could have used that money for better use, and I could have spent more time learning in the base medrash if I didn't have the wood that we needed to install into the floor. So you see that kind of story. I don't even know if it's true. I doubt it's true. I don't think the Chafetz Chaim would have ever said that to his wife. He probably would have been much more sensitive to his wife. But whoever said it, or whatever the idea of the story is, the point is that if you're so immersed in that world of spirituality, like, you're oblivious to the physical realm, right? So, like, what's the point of these blessings? And if anything, you'd say, it's like people say, if Olam Haba is all just about people sitting and learning Torah all day, maybe I'll try the other place. It sounds more fun. So what are we supposed to do for such a person who has that attitude? He says, "Ma she'en ken im yagia lo revach gadol, masigo afilu b'shah shehu asuk b'Torah." He says, but even a person who is spiritually focused, if he wins the Powerball lottery, and he wins $50 million, so even that person who's so spiritually immersed can't ignore that. That's going to have some impact, That's going to mean something. Wow, $50 million, now I can really do something even in the spiritual world. I can change the Torah world. He says, "V'zehu militzasa kasu v'hisigucha kisishma." And that's what the word v'hisigucha means, which means afilu b'sha'ah shetihiyeh asuk b'havanat haTorah u'boreach mehevlei olam hazeh, that even if you're that kind of person who is so immersed in the spiritual realm, in the Torah realm, and you really eschew all of these physical external trappings, nevertheless, mikol makom tia kol kacha bracha gedola ad shetasigecha. But the blessing will be so amazing that even the most spiritual of people will be unable to ignore it, will be unable to be fazed by it, to be but fazed by it. You'll like, it'll overwhelm you. Even if you're like immersed in the base medrash all day, and your whole care is Torah, but the blessings that'll hit you will be so amazing that you'll be blown away, even though you're a spiritual kind of person who doesn't really care about the physical. That's what v'hisigucha means for the Nitziv. Okay, so that's a pretty big blessing. Okay, and then finally we'll take a look at Reb Tzadok. Reb Tzadok, as some of you may know, it's a fascinating biography. Reb Tzadok was originally a misnaged. He was originally anti-Hasidic in the 19th century, and he had a marital discord and was looking to get, his wife refused to take a get, and he was looking for different rabbanim throughout Europe to give him a heter to remarry even without giving his wife a get. Heter meir rabbanim. And he went to different people, and he went to the Ishbitzer Rebbe, a very, very important Hasidic Rebbe, who chastised him, told him it was wrong for him to divorce his wife, and convinced him to go back to his wife. And in that process, he became completely converted to a Hasidic outlook on Judaism. And so he became a disciple of the Ishbitzer. So most of the Torah that we have in the writings of Reb Tzadok HaKohen are based on the teachings of the Ishbitzer, who wrote his own sefer called the Mei HaShiloach. Okay.
And his wife.
What's that?
And his wife.
What does his wife write?
Did he go back to his wife?
I believe he did, yeah. I believe he did. I think that's the way the story ends. I'd like to think that's the way the story ends. Okay. Rabbeinu HaKadosh Zatzal mi Ishbitza, Amar Perish v'hisigucha, Shelo Tishtaneh. You know what it means that the hisigucha, it'll reach you? It means you won't change as a result of the blessings. And he explains. He says, "Shelifamim yuchal ha'adam lihishtanot al yedei Yeshua gedola. Al zeh hivtiach Moshe Rabbeinu olav hashalom v'hisigucha shelo tishtaneh." He says a lot of times people change when they get a lot of good things in life. They change, and usually they change for the worse, yes? Right? So when you're lowly and humble and nice and sweet and kind, all of a sudden you strike it rich, and your old friends you can't be bothered with. You don't want to talk to your old friends anymore. They're not good enough, right? And you change. You change as a result of the blessings. And Hashem promises you that part of the blessings in life that I will give you, they won't change you. You'll still be the same sweet, lovable person you always were. V'chein yesh lomar lahalan behahefech kesiv gam ken uvo alecha kol haklalos ha'ila v'hisigucha. And he says, similarly, we could explain the flip side when it says that the curses will reach you and they will catch up with you. He says, "V'hainu shebevadai lo diber hakasuv b'schar va'onesh hamitzvos." He says, let's think about this for a second. He says the Torah here is not telling us the rewards and punishments for the observance or non-observance of Hashem's Torah. He says, "Shezeh eino ba'olam hazeh, rak hayom la'asosam u'lamachar lekabel scharam." He says, because that's something that we're only privy to in the next world. The ultimate rewards and punishments come to us not in this world, but in the next world. But he says, "Rak habrachot shel olam hazeh hainu sheyitein Hashem kol hasayatot sheyuchal lavod Hashem b'yeter seit." As we know, many commentaries say this. What does Hashem give us in this world? What kind of blessings, what kind of rewards does Hashem give us in this world? He makes it easier for us to serve Him. If we show that we are doing good things in our life, Hashem will give us more opportunities to do good stuff. So I know that, let's say, I'd like to volunteer more of my time to help people, but I can't because I got so many chores to do, and I've got to go to work, and I've got to take care of the kids, and I've got to take care of the house, and etc. Hashem will give you so much blessing that you'll be able to offload those responsibilities to your hired help. Everything else will be taken care of for you, and you'll be able to do the mitzvahs you want to do. That's really the reward. It's not the reward for the mitzvah itself. It's that Hashem will ameliorate our ability to do more mitzvahs. V'im chas v'shalom lo yishma'u, az yiyeh ha'hefech. And if, God forbid, we don't listen, then God complicates our lives even more, making it more difficult for us to do the things we'd like to do. Gam ken l'sayata, but that's also God helping us. You know why? Sha'al yedei zeh yitnu leiv lashuv lehitiv darkam. Because when we see complications arising in our lives, we'll take it to heart and we'll realize, you know what? I'm getting some kind of message here. If I can't do what I'd like to do, maybe Hashem is giving me a message that I should choose another hobby. He says, "V'hinei b'Tisha B'Av b'yom hachurban teikav asu kol Yisrael teshuva." He says, now let's think about it. On Tisha B'Av, as soon as God destroyed the temple, immediately at that moment, when the Jewish people experienced the pain of punishment, they immediately repented. Ba'al yedei zeh nolad teikef Mashiach. And that's when Mashiach was born. So what Hashem is promising us is, I'm sorry for going over time. What Hashem is promising us is that when the curses strike you, I'll make sure that they have a lasting effect, that you won't become inured or calloused to the curses. I'll try to bring you curses in life that will wake you up, and that will make sure that you remain faithful to Hashem and really try to inspire you to do better. That's what v'hisigucha. So v'hisigucha, when it comes to the blessings, is you won't change. You'll still retain your goodness. And the hisigucha for the klalos is that they will still have that desired effect to help you change and be rehabilitated. Okay, we should all be zocha to the blessings reaching us and catching up to us and overwhelming us. Have a great day.